Alright, this morning we're going to talk about in MongoDB how to create a configuration file. And the purpose of this video is not to answer every single question on it, or this configuration, or that configuration. It just seems to be some questions about, hey, this is automatically happening, is there a way to stop it? And you can definitely look to see if the specific issue that you're facing can be automatically configured. Usually anything that involves administration, the answer is yes. Not always, there are exceptions to the rule, but usually if it involves administration, you will be able to configure it. So MongoDB uses config files, or a config file that is, and I am looking at version excuse me, 2.2. That is what I have on this test computer here. So what I'm going to do here is we are going to load a configuration file, and the first thing to note is that I have the configuration file in MongoDB bin, which is where MongoDB is at in my computer, that is, and then I have it under the configuration. Okay, so this is a .conf file. In later versions of MongoDB, you are able to use YAML, which may not be how you say the name, but that's how I'm going to say the name. 1 second, because that's what it sounds like to me. Alright, so in here, and this is for, again, version 2.2, you will notice that I have specified a log path. You'll notice I'm also putting it under the configuration. So it's going to be config MongoDB log. That's because MongoDB is called from bin, so it's going to start at bin, right? And then, of course, I'm specifying verbose to be true. So I'm going to use a simple example here where we're going to, for this file, we're going to build a log in this folder, and we're specifying verbose to be true. So how do I call that configuration file? Okay, let me move this over. And so for answering the question of how to create a configuration file, usually you're going to use a text editor, and you're going to save it as a .conf. So once you create the config file, then it's about calling it. And what we're going to do is we're going to do MongoD, and we're going to specify f, and then we're going to say config, go back, I believe it's config, yeah, and then slash mongodb.conf. So what I'm doing here is I'm passing in the parameter, the configuration file specified. And so what you'll see is when I call mongod, it's actually now started the server, right? Now, of course, I realize people like, no, it hasn't, but yeah, actually it has. The output that we would normally see in our console window is now going to this log file. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to fire up Mongo shell, and let's do use SQL in 6. Okay, so now we have SQL in 6, we're connected. So let's create a database. I'm sorry, not create a database, create a collection. Let's do db.configurationexample.insert, and note that I don't have, this doesn't exist. So when I insert a new document to something that doesn't exist, it creates it, for those of you who haven't gone through the full series yet. This is something about MongoDB that's pretty cool. You can create a collection on the fly by just inserting into a non-existent collection document, and it'll create the collection. So we have db.configurationexample.insert. Let's do field. This is a configuration example, and it does that. And then if I were to do db.configurationexample.find.pretty, we would see it has an ID and a field. Now, I'm going to do exit, and it'll say bye. I'm now going to close our mongod instance. I am going to go back to our configuration folder, and you'll notice we have our MongoDB log file. Now I'm going to edit this with Notepad, and we'll see, look at all the output, man, I can't talk this morning, okay? And so we can look through here, and we can see, and this is a lot of times what mongod loads when it runs things. And let's see here, if we go down, we can see that it's closing, shutting down, down here, and we'll also see, if you notice, this is where we built our configuration example, right? So if I highlight this, now Notepad's pretty cool, and the Notepad++, I should say, is pretty cool that I can look for things here But you'll notice this is kind of the segment when we look through this log file where we can do, where you can see what we did. We inserted SQL6 configuration example, new namespace, etc., etc. So this kind of is a log. And then, of course, like everything else, just like with SQL Server, right, we can actually build PowerShell scripts, or we can build C# programs to go through and read that output of the log and then archive the log. So that is a simple example of what we did. Is we built a configuration file, and again, it's going to be .conf, right? Let me just make sure. Yes, it's .conf, and then we basically passed in some parameters. We said, hey, this is some of the things that we want to do. Again, we're in this example, I'm using version 2.2, so keep that in mind. And then, of course, we tested it to make sure that it did exactly what we specified. So that's an example. When you're looking for other parameters, you'll just go through and look for what it is that you want to do, and then that's kind of the way and the route in which you would go.